in today's video, I'm going to be reacting to your watch collections. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And a couple of days ago, I asked you guys to submit your watch collections to our Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches, and I was inundated with so many beautiful collections. Now, I can't get through all of them because this video would be literally hours long, but I have selected a good couple that are absolutely banging. And some of the watches in here are magic, like really rare magic. So you definitely want to stick around for them. All right, everybody, so let's kick off with the new Anthony Spinner on Instagram. I'm just going to open up this image here. And oh, sweet mother of God, take a look at this. So let's go from left to right here. So if we zoom in on the left, we can actually see that there's a Rolex Sea Dweller. I believe this is the reference number 126600. Personally, for me, that's that little bit too chunky. But when it comes to tool watches, when it comes to watches that serve a purpose, you can't get better than that specific model. It's pretty unbelievable. The next watch on the wrist is the Rolex Explorer 2. Now, he has gone for the black dial, whereas I personally kind of have an affiliation to white dials. The reference number here is 216570. If we move on to this Omega, wow, that Omega, that is a sexy, sexy watch. Look at the blue and the red contrast. Jeez-o. This is actually the Omega Speedmaster Moon Phase with the blue dial, because you do get a black variant as well. And it has the reference number 30433.44.52.03.001. And when you keep moving on to the right, you can see that he actually has an Omega Seamaster 300 meters with the black dial, black bezel, and he's actually put it on the rubber strap. And by the way, I have to commend you on that, because I also have the Omega Seamaster on the rubber strap. I've gone through every variant, every iteration of the Omega Seamaster over my years of owning it, and I always find that the rubber strap's the one I come back to, the one that looks best. So you've probably done the same as me. Absolutely banging. Now, moving on to the right a little bit more, this is a really unusual Tag Heuer. It's a tag that I don't think I've actually seen before. This is the Tag Heuer Professional 300 meters in quartz, so it doesn't have that automatic movement. So it has a black dial and an aluminium bezel, and it has the reference number WAB1110. Now, interestingly enough, about quartz Tag Heuer aqua racers, it actually gets rid of one of the biggest gripe around Tag Heuer, which can be the thickness. When you have that automatic movement, sometimes they are that little bit thicker, but because you've gone for the quartz, it is that little bit thinner. I also have an affiliation and I have a love for aluminium bezels. I love the way they age over time. They kind of get that dusty kind of look to them that ceramic just don't get. They seem to age a lot more gracefully, shall we say, than ceramic. They just look that little bit more vintage. So actually, I really like that. I think it's a really interesting shape, especially with that kind of bulge coming off the left-hand side. And it's a watch that I should take a deeper look at. Now, if you move on to the right that little bit more, you have the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. That, of course, has the Powermatic 80 movement, 80 hours of power. It's an absolutely banging watch with the blue dial. I personally have the green. As an overall collection, this is really, really good. Now, what I would suggest, if this is in your ballpark, I would maybe go for something that little bit more dressy next. I mean, you've got the Explorer models, you've got the wear and tear models. Apart from the Speedmaster, which is that little bit more dressy, you are looking at more of an adventurous collection. I myself have that, so that's no criticism. But maybe it's time to look at something that little bit more dressy. Maybe something like the JLC Reversal would be really unique within that collection. If you want something that little bit more unique looking that still fits into that dress category and has that round shape that you seem to like, maybe look at the Glashütte Original Panamatic. It's an unbelievable line of watches, and Glashütte Original themselves are absolutely beautiful in terms of craftsmanship and in terms of movement. But overall, mate, this is an absolutely banging collection. I love the Seamaster in particular. I really am quite fascinated by the Tag Heuer. Well done. Right, next on the watch collection list, we have WristworthyUK. So we're just going to go into his file right now. Let's open up his collection, and bang, you have a collection of 9 watches. 9 very good looking watches at that. Let's take a look. So zooming in on the left-hand side, you can see that he has the Tudor Black Bay ETA burgundy. He actually has the same one as me. Now, this is that little bit more vintage because it has the smiley text. So a couple of key features that they changed. Firstly, they no longer use ETA movements. This has an ETA movement, which makes it that little bit thinner. They no longer use the rose on the dial or that smiley text. So there's a couple of vintage flares in there that are really attractive about this Tudor Black Bay ETA. I actually have the same watch. I think that's a banging model, and I actually am interested that you put it on the rubber strap. And I think I know why you did, because the bracelet of that one is a little bit older. So maybe it's had that little bit more wear and tear, but that's a cool model. When we move over to the right that little bit more, we can see that he has the Omega Planet Ocean. This comes in at 42 millimeters, is a lot more chunky, a lot more tool watch-esque. I always say that the Planet Ocean is the rugged, tough doer, whereas the Omega Seamaster 300-meter diver is the more pretty, aesthetic-looking watch that might not actually be put through its paces. So that's a genuine tool watch, a genuine, brilliant tool watch. Moving over a little bit more, you can see that you've gone for the Breitling Avenger 43 in blue, which is brilliant. I really, really like that. But one of the most fascinating in this collection is this. It's actually the Panerai Luminor PAM00114, I believe. And I've always been kind of infatuated with Panerai because of that safety latch on the right-hand side. It's so iconically Panerai. Panerai is one of the last remaining brands that suits being big. Unapologetically big, and I think that's really cool. When you go down a level, you can see that you have the Panerai Radiomir. Again, an absolute brilliant watch with a ton of history when it relates to the Italian Navy. Super, super cool. I like how you've got the contrast between the white and the black dial, so you've got one of each, which is nice. If you move to the left one, you can see that you have a Tudor Black Bay Bronze, which is a super nice iteration to the collection because it's diversifying your metal types, which is actually really cool. And also, because it's bronze, it patinas over time. It'll get that unique look based on what you've worn it for, what you do with it. And I really like that. One thing I'm not as sure about that one, though, is the NATO strap. I do like that NATO strap, but I'd maybe play with others. I'd maybe add something extra. Next up on the left, we have a Longines Legend Diver. It looks like there's a green dial here. I'm gonna say it's green. And again, a brilliant watch with an internal rotating bezel that adds a point of uniqueness. This looks very different to pretty much all of the watches in these collections. Actually, this is a really good collection in terms of diversity, I must say. I mean, you've got the dressy watch when it comes to the Longines Legend Diver, or maybe the Panerai Radiomir down there. But on the left, you also have the Longines Aviation Big Eye chronograph, which gives you your chronograph model, which gives you an additional layer to your collection. And on the left of that, just in the corner sneaking in here, you've actually got a CWC RN Diver, and that is that military-inspired, military-esque watch that's used in the field. I honestly think this is a super diverse collection. I think potentially what you could add, it's kind of the same as the last Gentleman's collection, is adding that layer of super dressy, that JLC maybe reversal. Or maybe even bringing in a Grand Seiko Snowflake, something that has super polished metal that is for those more dressy occasions, because this is quite tool watch-esque. Apart from obviously the Longines, but then you have the Longines Conquest coming in bronze. So I think that having that layer of more dressy watches could add the diversity to your collection. With that said, this is a banging collection. Absolutely brilliant. So again, well done. And honestly, I've had a kind of brief scan through some of these collections. Some of the watches coming up, you're gonna love them. But this, super cool. Love how you've gone for variants in terms of metals. That's something that I'm yet to do. And yeah, it's very nice. Next up, we have P.M.23, and he has a collection of, it looks like 4 or 5 watches, and he sent individual images of each of them. So let's just quickly go into them. So let's go into this one first. So in the middle just here, you can see that he has an Omega Seamaster green dial. It's commonly nicknamed the Seaweed, and it's an interesting choice keeping it on the bracelet. Normally when people get Omega Seamasters, they quickly shuffle it over to a NATO or to a rubber, a bit like what I did. But the fact you're keeping it on the bracelet, fair play, you must like it. And then on the right-hand side of that, you can see that he's got the Tudor Black Bay Pro, which is another absolutely brilliant watch. And it screams adventure, that watch. It screams tool watch that's used in the tool setting. And I love that. I also love the fact that it has that stainless steel bezel, because that's a dying breed in the industry. And it's also a point of difference in this collection. Now, something that I really like, something that I find fascinating, is on the left-hand side, you can see that this gentleman has an Omega Seamaster 300 meters from 1964. That is so cool. And the unique thing about this is, well, it doesn't have that helium escape valve on the left-hand side. And also, the bracelet on this model looks awful like a Speedmaster bracelet. I have a hunch that this bracelet has been changed on, because in terms of the shape of the bracelet, in terms of the neck of the bracelet, it shouldn't look that good if it's from 1964. So I think he switched that on to a Speedmaster bracelet. I think that might be what he's done there, but I love the vintage flares of that watch. I love how the dial is that little bit smaller. It probably has that aluminium disc in there as well. That's a really stunning, actually that's one of the highlights so far, I would say. Now he's also sent in this image. It's actually a better image so that you can see that green popping out that little bit more in the Seamaster. But when you go over to the right just a touch, you can actually see that he has an Omega Constellation chronometer. Now it's quite hard to see just from this picture, but that looks like the original classic vintage watches you get. It looks like it has those vintage vibes everywhere, down to the logo, down to the font, down to the positioning and look of the dial. It's really nice. It is really nice. It also looks a lot smaller. Remember back in the day, watches began really small. I'm talking like 32 to 38 mil was the norm, but now it's all the way up to 43, and that's a change that's happened over a long time. So that is that little bit more vintage, which is really nice. And also look at this on the right-hand side. Wow. This is the Omega Speedmaster triple date, and the reference is 3523.80. That to me is absolutely stunning because it has that stainless steel bezel. With that said, I would say for me personally, it's a little bit too busy. Just a little bit too busy. I do think that there's just so much going on in that watch that I wouldn't know what to look at, if I'm perfectly honest. Overall, an absolutely banging collection. What I would suggest for you, mate, is I would start looking at things that aren't as expensive, but that you can fill out your collection with. Take a look at Seikos, maybe take a look at Tissot's, take a look at Certinas. There's so many brands there that are brilliant quality for a fraction of the price of like an Omega Seamaster. And it allows you to really fill out your collection. And I think that is what would really benefit you. And it also means you're not forking out £6,000. You're maybe forking out 600 quid. So you can have that slow release of getting some watches before you get your next Grail watch. And I do think that would benefit you in terms of just filling that out that little touch more. But those are absolutely banging. I've said banging so much in this video, but they are very good. So well done. These collections, by the way, are just insane. But the one that's last, the last collection, you're going to want to wait for that. All right, next up, we have Gregswatches on Instagram, and he's actually sent in a bunch of different shots, so we're just going to take a look at them really quickly. So with Gregswatches, you can see in the middle here, you've got a Grand Seiko, and it's the SPG X353G. It's actually, I believe this one's nicknamed the Skyflake, and it's a lot smaller. It comes in at 34 millimeters in diameter. So it is that little bit more vintage looking. It is a lot smaller. It's a lot more dressy, and it's really nice. I always call Grand Seiko the king of dials, and it's because it's true. Honestly, in my eyes, not many brands, if any, can beat Grand Seiko when it comes to dials. So this is the Omega Speedmaster 3520.50.00, and it's triple date again. So we have a very similar watch, but just slightly different to the last gentleman that was showing his collection. I find that still quite busy, but the interesting thing about this is comparatively to the last, it has what looks like a more ceramic disc or bezel in there. And actually, I think I prefer the stainless steel. But even still, it's a beautiful watch to get as a Speedmaster. Super complicated. And what this goes to show is somebody that really loves craftsmanship, that really loves watchmaking for its pure form. Because a lot of the time you're not really going to use the complications, but it's the fact that it can do it. It's the fact that you want to see into the heart of that watch. You want to know that it has those technicalities. That's really nice. But what I find fascinating is the last watch. Take a look at this. Now, what we're looking at right now in this video is the Habring Felix, and it comes in at 38.5 millimeters. I've never really done that much research into this brand. It's not a brand that I know, and that's partially why I love doing these collection videos, because you guys keep teaching me. You guys show me new brands, and I'm just looking at that jumping seconds. I mean, look at that. Look at the craftsmanship there. Even better than that is there's actually a video with the movement that I'll show you right now. And the movement of this watch looks unlike anything I've ever seen. Like, look at this. Look at this. Look at how beautiful that looks. I've never done that much research into this brand, so I don't want to say too much because I'm definitely not a authority in that area because I've just not done the research as much as I have other brands. But it's definitely a brand I'm going to look into, definitely a brand I'm going to research. And I think it's really cool that you're diversifying your watch collection. This, to me, screams love for watches in their purest form. You don't care about the hype models, you care about the craftsmanship, and you get what you like because you like it. And Greg, from your handle, I think that's your name, Greg, I think that's an awesome thing to do. I think that's a sign of a true watch lover, a true watch enthusiast, and it's just brilliant. With that said, if I were to give you a pointer for your collection, you've done the dressy side of things. Go for something more rugged, more tough, something that you can wear every day and not be nervous about the scratches. And it doesn't have to be super expensive, you know? It can be something like a Tudor Black Bay is a perfect example of something that's Coskin Meta certified. It's brilliant for the money, and you can wear it every day and not worry about it as much. Because I know that Grand Seiko, for example, is coming in at £6,000, £7,000, £8,000, not to mention the Amiga and that other model. So yeah, something like that I think would fill out your watch collection and give you a daily beater that you're not as nervous about. And I think that would be a good addition. By the way, guys, if you want to get involved in our next video reacting to your watches, then make sure you fire over to our Instagram. It's at Chisholm Hunter Watches. That's at Chisholm Hunter Watches. It's a great way to keep in touch. And whenever I'm doing a video that I'm including you guys in, I'll always ask you guys on Instagram first, just because it's easier to send pictures and messages and chat to you over there. So fire over there. The next collection video, if you didn't make it to this one, you will make it to the next one, I promise. Right, next up, we have ReiKelvin, potentially. Sorry, I am very dyslexic before I go any further, so if I get any names wrong, I do apologize. Oh my God. Take a look at that collection. Diverse. It's... wow, I'm actually struggling to even say anything because I'm quite fascinated by looking at this. Right, let's work through from... let's go left to right. So on the left, just here, you can see that there's a Seiko SNK809, a brilliant daily beater, a brilliant everyday wearer, and all-round Seiko are just a really great brand. Now on the right of that, you actually have what looks like a Seiko, but if you look at that text box just there, you can see that it's actually a Grand Seiko. So you would have purchased this before Seiko and Grand Seiko had that major kind of splitting, not splitting of companies, but the kind of segmentation of each brand. So before, they used to do Seiko, and then below it, they'd have Grand Seiko. But now they just have Grand Seiko and they have Seiko. So they've done a split there. So this might be a little bit older of a Grand Seiko, but it doesn't mean that it's any less brilliant in terms of quality. Personally, I'm a big fan of the white dial. That's a nice white dial. If we go to the right a little bit more, you can see that you've actually got a Black Bay 58 in blue. The Black Bay 58 is just one of those brilliant watches. With that said, I'm not as keen on the leather strap, but that's personal preference. You know, some people love leather straps, some people hate them. It's just preference. I think that's a brilliant watch. I like the fact you've gone for blue. It's a little bit more out there. It's not for me, but it's a little bit more out there. Now on the right, this is cool. This is the IWC Mark X V111, and in terms of daily beater, in terms of military watch, that's what it screams to me. It's got all the functionality, but it's in a military-esque style, and it's not as abrasive, perhaps, or it's not as big and bold as the Big Pilot. It's a lot more wearable. Something that I really love about that IWC is the reflection. This is a really weird thing to say. It's definitely a watch nerdy thing to say, shall we say, but the way that the blue comes out in that reflection. I mean, look at it in comparison to all the other watches. None of them have that blue sheen that the IWC does. It's super sexy. Going to the right a little bit more, this is quite hard to see because of the light, but it looks like a Grand Seiko SBG M251. The dial on this thing, by the way, absolutely brilliant. It's kind of these strips of blue. Again, Grand Seiko just being the king of dials. It works. And from what I'm seeing so far in this collection, it's really nicely varied. You've got your daily beaters, you've got your more dressy things like Grand Seikos. There's a nice variance that's going on here, and I really like that. You've also put a leather white strap on this watch. It wouldn't be for me personally just because it would get dirty, but if you're wearing this once in a blue moon for a dress occasion, I understand that. Also, because I'm so pale, when I wear like a white strap, it just blends into my wrist. So maybe if I had a tan, it'd look better. On the right of that, it looks like a Baltic aquascaphe. I'm a real fan of that shade of grey, that kind of muted down grey. I really like that. Now going down, let's go over here. What is that? That looks... What is that? Right, so that's a Glycine Airman, and it's the GL0372. I've never heard of that brand, and I honestly don't know what to say about it. I actually like a lot of the details, but what I'm not sure of, it looks like the bezel is kind of repeated on the interior bezel. Like there's a 24-hour mark, but it's repeated on the interior, which makes it look that little bit more busy. With that said, the red text on the right-hand side, the vintage flares, the fact that the crown is right beside whatever that is, or maybe it has an interior rotating bezel. That could be potentially what it has. But with that said, I have no idea. I like watches that I have no idea about, because it shows that there's still so much to learn, so I like it. On the right-hand side of that, you have a Tag Heuer, and it's an aqua racer. It looks like one of the old aqua racers, potentially a quartz model. It's a lot smaller. That isn't for me per se. I just think it's a little bit too feminine for me personally. With that said, Tag Heuer is a banging brand with loads of history, so it's great that you've gone for one. Moving on to the right slightly to this watch here, we have a G-Shock, and this is the GWS5600U. Moving on to the right of that, we have a Timex, which actually I really like that. It's actually the orbit gear, so it's all to do with the planets and the solar systems, and that's actually really, it's really busy, but it's really cool. That to me is more of a playful purchase, and I think that's cool. On the right here, we have, it looks like a black square to me. So the next up is the Beluva Computron, I think. I'm honestly not really sure what to say about that because it's, to me, just a black square. I'm not really sure what to say. With that said, on the right of that, you have the Citizen Sayosa, which is an absolutely banging watch from Citizen that is boomed into popularity that I actually want. And you've gone a bit more adventurous with your dial choice there. The light blue adds more of a flair to that watch. It's a lot more bold. What I can see in this collection is a bold variance of everything. You buy watches because you want to buy them, not because anybody else suggests to buy a certain model or a hype watch. There's very little in the way of hype watches here. It's very much personal taste, and I love that. I love the fact that you're doing your own thing, going your own way, don't care what other people say. That's what watch collecting should be about. It's art at the end of the day, right? It's subjective. So I really like that. I really do. And there's honestly not many suggestions that I can give based on this collection because it is so diverse. It is so, mix and match with tons of different brands. I would say just keep expanding. Maybe the next step for you is to go for that more expensive model. Maybe it's going to that next level. Maybe it's going for something like a Breitling, or maybe even trying to get into the Holy Trinity, maybe a Vacheron. Maybe you could sell a couple of these models and look at a Vacheron. But overall, I really like this collection. Right, we're saving the best until last, because take a look at this. So this collection is from Somanikr on Instagram, or Anik as I would know him, and just look at both of these rows. This is like the grail of all grails. So up the top on the left hand side just here, we have the Rolex Sub 114060. a staple in any watch collection, really. Then on the right of that, we have the GMT Batman 116710BLNR, which is, again, a staple in a lot of watch collections. Then on the right of that, we have another Rolex, which is the Rolex Daytona 116500LN. And on the right of that, another staple in the industry in terms of watch collectors, we have an Omega Speedmaster, and it's the Omega Speedmaster 145.022. That row, it's one of the watches from that row itself would make a watch collection. So the fact that you're honored and privileged enough and lucky enough to have all of them is incredible. So congratulations, mate, seriously. Then when you go down a level, on the left-hand side, starting, we have a perpetual calendar, Patek Philippe. This is the 5140G. On the right of that, we have the Patek Philippe Calatrava 5212A. On the right of that, we have another Patek Philippe, a Patek Aquanaut 5167A. And then on the right of that, we have a glorious AP. This is the AP 15300. I think that is unbelievable, that collection. That is just beautiful. You don't need to do anything with that collection, but if you still want to collect watches, and normally this hobby is all-consuming, I would look at the lower price point models that you can buy more of and have more fun with. Look at things that are a little bit quirky, a little bit out there. Look at Christopher Ward, the Bel Canto, all these kind of things that are just fun. But overall, that is absolutely incredible. Guys, if you could do me a favor really quick, put in the comments who you think has won this watch collection and why. Let's see who, in your eyes, wins this watch collection competition. Who's on top? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. If you want to get involved on our next collection video, make sure you head to our Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches. Remember that we have our very own podcast, the Into the Mind podcast. Thank you guys so much for submitting your watch collections. If I didn't get around to you, I am sorry, and we will get to you next time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.